All right. We're going to do the countdown so I sound professional. Three, two, one. And we're recording. So, how are you?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
Really well, thanks. Really well. It's really nice to hear. We were just chatting just before then. It's really nice to hear about Mossel Bay. Being spending so much time there. It's really nice to hear about it. A shame things are going so slow.
Yeah, I mean, obviously with everything that's going on with COVID at the moment, I think it's been a bit of a pause for everyone and everything of work. But the best thing about it is obviously the wildlife here hasn't really changed. So we're still seeing loads of dolphins and uh, some of the sharks are still apparent in the bay.
Hmm.
When we're going out diving, we're seeing raggies at the moment. So it's really, really good biodiversity here.
Yeah, that's really nice because that's the one thing I miss about Mossel Bay. It's just how like it's such a how do I say it? It's like a whole ecosystem wrapped up into like a small place. Everything's so convenient.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
no, it's amazing. That's why I'm really thankful. Out of all the places coming from the UK, I'm quite happy that I'm here for the COVID situation.
Yes, I can. Yeah, yes, the best place to be, isn't it? It's lovely weather almost all year round. I'd say almost all year round, and just some of the most incredible animals. To start with, because I always forget this part of the questions, could you tell the lovely viewers who you are and what you do?
Yeah, sure. So, hi guys, I'm Emily. I've come from the UK. I studied at Essex University and did a bachelor's in marine science and decided that I'm going to come out to South Africa to gain some more experience in the field. So, I've worked very closely with White Shark Africa, going on their cage diving boats, learning about all the white sharks. I've also been helping out Oceans Research, who are another internship group here with all of their receiver information for tagged white sharks. And I'm also working with Elton Polly, who's one of the head uh, guys at Go Dive, where I've also become a diving instructor. So this whole time I've been out here, which is just over a year now, which is a lot longer than I anticipated. But like I say, because of COVID, I'm in one of the best places I can be. So yeah, I've just been working my way around, getting experience in the field, trying to do some conservation efforts around the bay as well.
That's awesome. Wow, you've been there for about what, just over a year, is it? God, because you did a lot more than I did in about 2 years. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. Well, yes, I don't think you would have known about the whole COVID thing. Yeah, yeah, that must have been a bit of a shock. Did you do your studies in Mossel Bay or did you do them back in Britain?
No, yeah. So I did my bachelor's in the University of Essex in the UK.
Mm.
Graduated in 2019 and then flew out here at the beginning of 2020.
Oh wow, that's awesome. Bit of a shock of what happened, but a pretty good shock, I'd say.
Yeah, super, one of those happy accidents.
Yes. Just a little thing. Can you give us a little bit of detail about the white shark tagging stuff, or is that something you can't talk about?
No, no, no. I think they're quite happy, what's going on at the moment. So they're actually using satellite tagging. So
Mm.
they've got these prods, poles that they use, which contain a satellite tag externally onto the shark.
Mm.
So what they're actually doing, enticing the shark with chum, getting them around the bait,
Mm.
and then when they're close enough towards the boat, then using the pole to jab the shark. They've got
Oh.
very, very thick skin, so the pole is very, very, has to be accurately put into the shark and pierce that thick skin.
Mm.
And yeah, they'll just be receiving data on where these sharks are traveling and what time of year and how deep they're going in the water.
Mm. Have you done that? Have you done it yet? Have you jabbed the shark?
Unfortunately, because we were on the boat with some other people as well, and there was also
Mm.
a film crew there.
Oh,
There were
okay,
certain,
yeah.
yeah, and I was filming and stuff like that as well.
That's still immensely awesome to see. That's really cool. That's
Yeah,
really
it's
cool.
very, and obviously listening to the scientists around who come down here. I was very lucky to work with Alison Towner,
Mm.
who's doing a PhD on the white sharks here. And, she's a very lovely lady to be in contact with and share her experiences with what's been happening with the orcas in Mossel Bay and all of her studies and how it's changed because of COVID and the sharks moving away from Mossel Bay.
Um, on the note of the tagging of the sharks, why is it important to tag shark? Why is it important for me to know how deep they go?
I think it's just because it gives us a better understanding of what their anatomy and physiology is able to do. So obviously some of these sharks are very small. They're going after particular types of prey items, depending on their size and jaw structure, etc. And it also gives us really good information of where sharks are going and what they're doing, because there isn't actually that much data around white sharks and where they go and where they breed and why. There's obviously a few scientists and researchers who have their ideas and they give their, like I say, ideas of where to go, where they go, and what they do, etc. But still really valuable information to know, so we get a better understanding of their behaviour.
So it's like you say, it just gives us every little bit of information is something that we can learn about the animal.
Yeah, 100%.
Now, I want to talk about Mossel Bay for a bit, because that was, that's my gateway into this kind of scene, and I'm guessing it's your gateway as well.
100%. It's obviously become a me now.
And there's so many people. It's been really weird, actually. There's so many people who, like, during this whole lockdown thing, that I've started following on Instagram, and they've started following me on Instagram, and I'm thinking, hang on a minute, I recognize this area. There's so many people who go who start their kind of animal journey from Mossel Bay. Tell me about it. Tell the viewers about Mossel Bay, if if that's a question.
I mean, where do you even begin? So my whole fascination with South Africa started when I was very little. I was always obsessed with wildlife, and mostly big cats, to be honest with you. I always wanted to go find out about the lions and the leopards. And then it wasn't until I got a little bit older that I started becoming really passionate about marine life and fish and sharks, obviously. So I started researching Mossel Bay and obviously False Bay and other places around South Africa about their white sharks, because it's been on my bucket list forever to dive with a white shark and to actually see a white shark physically rather than on the TV. And, growing up watching Jaws and stuff has just always been a fascination. So I found the White Shark Internship. I came out here in 2018, did an internship with them, collected data for my thesis, for my bachelor's, and then obviously decided to come back out here because I loved it so much. It's just such a wonderful bay with so much to offer. I'm more into the diving side of things now, so I quite enjoy going out around the bay, taking people diving, and you meet so many people who are fascinated by, the sharks live here, and then we dive here, and obviously there's recreational sports, there's fishermen, there's such an array of people here who have this connection with the ocean, and obviously we have the surfers here as well, and there's just no interaction between all of them. It's just amazing to see. But yeah, mostly the biodiversity here, I think, is just one of the best things about this bay. We have such a huge array of marine life, marine mammals, dolphins, whales. We've got the seal colony out on the island. And obviously these massive range of shark species, like I said earlier, we're seeing white sharks at the moment, ragged-tooth sharks, pajama sharks, cat sharks, you name it, we're seeing them. So it's just a wonderful place with a lot of biodiversity to offer.
Yeah, it is a special place. When all of this kind of lockdown travel restrictions lift up, I recommend going there. It's a lovely place. It's an awesome place. It's where the majority of people I've met who are either studying sharks or photographing sharks or doing something else with animals entirely, they've either started in Huntsby or they've started in Mossel Bay. The majority of it's Mossel Bay. And it's funny what you said. Everyone who saw Jaws seems to have wanted to go there and do this. I feel like it's a funny kind of person who watches Jaws and be like, yes, this is on my bucket list. Yeah. No, awesome. Folks want to hear a lot about the white sharks, obviously, but I want to hear about some of the other little animals that live in the bay as well. So, like you were mentioning, like the dolphins, the whales, this, that, the other.
So obviously here with Go Dive at the moment, we've got a numerous amount of research projects that we have running. We do BROV survey analysis, which is basically where we go out on one of our dives. We use a drum full of bait, which has a camera attached to it. And then we drop this BROV on a location, which obviously is recording. So actually, we get to see what comes up towards the bait in terms of species. We're mostly looking at megafauna, which is your largest marine fish. But obviously we get the odd two like cephalopod on there, and you get a seal that's fast and stuff. So that's really cool. Gives us a really good indication of the health of the reefs here as well, because we're seeing so many different species. We're also working on a nudibranch project. A nudibranch is a sea slug, so they're very, very beautiful, an array of different colours, shapes and sizes. And because we've got so many different dive sites around the bay, we're actually kind of focusing on, you know, what reefs have certain species and why, and how deep they are in the water column, and whether that affects their behaviour of where they are compared to one side of the dive site to another. And then obviously we're doing all our conservation efforts as well. So we're also doing coastal cleans to see whether, you know, it's making a difference in the bay in terms of if COVID's affected the amount of cigarette butts we find on the floor, if people are still walking around, all the fishing line and stuff that we get from the recreational anglers along the shore. But, you know, we're getting a really good information on what's being dumped, basically. So, yeah.
Oh, awesome. That's a huge, huge amount of stuff to juggle. That's a huge amount of stuff to juggle. When it comes to the BRUVs, those little cameras you drop, how do you deploy those? Is that from a boat? Do you have to go down there? Like, how do you do that?
Yeah, so what we're actually doing at the moment is that we're going out on our boat dives. So they're being taken onto a boat. All the actual equipment itself is attached to a long buoy line with a chain and a rope, which we tend to drop anywhere between sort of 10 meters to 20 meters along the reefs that we dive on. So we're then going out on the dive boat, getting ready for a dive, deploying the BRUV at one area, and then going to dive at another area, then collecting it afterwards to then review the data.
Oh, cool. That's really cool. Hey, that's really nice because you get to share the water. It's kind of like you get to share the water with it in a weird way. Yeah.
There's certain reefs around here that are, you know, within 600 meters of the Seal Island. So we've got a really good hope that we'd have a white shark swim past. And, you know, I'm always very convinced that white sharks have seen me diving more than what I've seen them.
Now that brings me on to another point. There's so many things in Mossel Bay. What's the favourite stories? Because I got some of mine from the book, well, the white shark boat. But what are some of yours in the actual water?
Oh, it's so hard because, like you say, there are so many. But I think one of my most memorable moments is, you know, being a part of the white shark tagging on the boat and getting to speak to all these scientists and film crews that come all over the world just to, you know, film these animals for, you know, the BBC, Nat Geo, etc., and getting to talk to all of them and their experiences. What they have to offer is amazing. And obviously seeing these people working in the flesh as well, you kind of see what magic is into filming wildlife, because what you see on TV is here, you know, waiting for a shark to breach is not something that just happens just like that. And being on the white shark boat, waiting for the sharks to come around the boat, you know, these are wild animals. We've got no control over who they are, what they do. So we're doing everything on our measure to bring them close and to, you know, and get people to as such.
No, awesome, really cool, really nice. There's a lot of this, you know, these are all these awesome stories which I really enjoy from Mossel Bay. It's got a big a special part. You know, it has a special place in a lot of people's hearts, Mossel Bay. Why is it important to be conducting so much research, to be dropping cameras, monitoring the amount of trash that's on the beaches and in the reefs? Why is this all important to collect?
It just gives us such a better indication of the health of the reef ecosystems around here. So obviously with the BRUVs that we're deploying, we get to see what type of animals are coming in and out. If one area is particularly more fish than the other, then we could obviously assume that, you know, if we're looking at a large range of data over a couple of months, and we can see that sharks were very apparent in one area until anglers moved there and started fishing, then we can kind of get an indication of why there's a depletion in a species or why we're not seeing them as often. But again, these can also be assumptions. But conservation wise, like I say, it gives us a really good indication of what species are there and how often we're seeing them. And one of my favourite projects that we have is obviously the dive cleanup, so which is where we're going out actually on scuba gear and we're doing reef cleanup. So we're actually getting rid of entangled fish line, getting rid of sinkers, hooks, you know, stuff that's left there that a fish could easily swim into and get entangled and disrupted, etc. Recently had a couple months ago where we found remains of a gannet bird that had been tapped around in fishing line attached to a rock. And you can just see how this bird would have obviously ducked down to grab a prey, you know, fish or something, and then got entangled and then drowned, which is really, really sad. So it's just nice to see that if we are making a difference. I mean, even when we started doing this, we've noticed a significant difference with the amount of fishing line that we're pulling out now compared to what we did, you know, almost a year ago.
How has COVID affected that?
I think it's been, you know, probably a positive impact, just because we had a lot of restrictions here in South Africa, which, you know, didn't allow us to go outside for a couple of months. You know, all recreational activities stopped. We weren't allowed to go exercising, stuff like that. So there wasn't any fishing pressure anymore. I'm obviously with the essential travel and essential work permits, the trawlers and stuff and fishermen are still going out. But in terms of recreational activity that we get from our shoreline, it tended to drop quite a lot, which I think made a difference to the reefs because they're so rocky around the shallows. It tends to get snagged quite easily. So I do think that it did have some sort of positive impact in terms of the litter and pollution wise.
No, I've got a funny story with that. It's kind of funny. I was out snorkeling around. I can't remember where I was. I wasn't too far from the old house, and I had my camera. I was just doing some snorkeling, and I got caught in a fishing net, in a fishing line. Yeah, my ankle got caught up, and I was with two other guys, and they had to help me out, which is really kind of weird. It kind of says something, because I could have been, you know, I was just tangled up and just like, I didn't see it at all. It was really weird, but it says a lot. Like, you know, when those lines get out into the water, they cause a hell of a problem.
And I think, you know, what I'd like to touch on as well is that there are quite a lot of an angling community here, you know, and they are here targeting sharks and larger species of fish, trophy photos, etc. So it's been one of the main things that I'm kind of looking at the moment, because one of the South African legislations, I think it's the DEFA or Department of Environmental, one of them, not the same as the English one, but they passed a new rule saying that they're not allowed to target shark species under 1.3 meters. So that's been one of the sort of main talks at the moment within the community about, you know, what type of animals they are pulling out and what animals are being, you know, compared to, you know, being caught and kept.
Yeah, no, I find that it's a very tricky argument that I think there's a guy who follows me on. I've made so many Instagrams over this past, you know, couple months because of the situation for different reasons, so I can't remember which one. But what was I saying? There was a guy there who follows me on Instagram, and he's a shark fisherman, and he is obsessed with sharks. He never says anything malicious. He actually quite likes my photos when I post the photos up, and I find it really difficult to draw the line between someone. Because what am I trying to say? I wouldn't want to stamp out that enthusiasm, in a sense.
It's a very difficult taboo subject, I would say, just because they are very passionate about sharks. They are very passionate about fishing. But from a conservation and ethical point of view, the way that they're catching and handling these sharks before they're getting released, and, you know, just their general anatomy, how they are when they're being pulled out into gravity, the air compared to in the water, like they're so much heavier on land, and to be put onto rocks and sand, and their bodies can be huge. You know, they're pulling out bronze whaler sharks, they're pulling out raggies, you know, big large species of rays as well that they're pulling out. So it's a very fine line of how to say which is right and which is wrong, because it also gives us a really good indication of what sharks are in the bay. So on that side of things, and the size and the growth, etc. So it's a very taboo subject, I think.
Yeah.
One that's really, really hard to tackle because, like you were saying, when you pull these animals out onto rocks and to sand, where the full effect of gravity is on them, you know, that can damage organs potentially. Maybe, I don't know. I feel like that was what would happen. It would it would put some damage onto organs. But yeah, I just like, this might just be me when I get into conversations with folks like this. It's just I don't want to say anything. Not because they're bad, aggressive people, but because there's that passion for the animal.
I think a kind of positive relationship with the anglers, you know, because we do want to understand what and why and what they're catching, and they are very open about the fact that they're catching sharks. It's just maybe we could find a way possibly in the future so that we can work together, so that we're making sure that the release procedure is as quick as possible. They're getting the right information from it. You know, they're able to take the photos and they're able to, you know, get an idea of what the species is like out of the water. It's, like I say, to that level where it's going to be safe for the animal and it's safe for the human as well.
Yeah.
Is there anything happening like that? Is there any kind of like kind of collaboration between the two parties per se, between like the scientists and the anglers?
Yeah, so I think particularly in PE, what I've been following Elasma Branch Africa, who are another group who focus on anglers, and they're actually out to all these competitions and events, and you know, taking data from these animals, you know, the size, the markings, what species they are, and etc. etc. So I think it gives them a really good indication, and they're very positive about this. You know, they want to create this really positive environment between the two, conservation and angling, but like I say, to an extent, make it safe. Yeah,
so that the animal goes back and receives little to no injury.
Yeah, exactly. And I know, you know, certainly from my own experiences of what I've seen here, is that there are certain species that don't make it after being caught. So to see people still targeting that species is very, very hard.
What are those sharks that don't make it, or those species of hammerheads?
Yeah, so we've got the scalloped hammerhead that come through here during this time. They prefer the warmer waters, and most of them are all juvenile as well, so they're very, very small. Are one of the main species that are targeted here at the moment, and obviously they are unfortunately they're not a protected species, but they are, so they're starred, so they're not it's 50-50 in the air, you know, like there's a lot of legislation here that needs to be put into effect a lot harsher. It's hard to reckon. It's so hard to know that as well. So like it's an unsure status of the scalloped hammerhead. So I think last time I looked, they were legally protected in around 2017 or 2018, I think, but then since then nothing's really been updated. So although there's a species, their protection is still very limited, and that's the same with all shark species, you know, because they're all migratory species, the larger ones, it's very hard to protect them in one area where they constantly change their swimming patterns all the time. It's a tricky game. The one thing I wanted to talk about, which is kind of fresh topic when I think of Mossel Bay, is trawlers or over trawling, because one of the last things I think I saw in Mossel Bay was a seal that was draped in fishing net. Huge amounts of fishing net in this pup, and it barely made it onto the rock, but you know, it was a goner completely. What's happening in terms of that? Is there still a lot of up in the air conversation when it comes to commercial trawling and lack of legislation on that? I didn't know a lot about it then, but I just saw the seal pup, and I heard whispers about conversations about these trawlers. I was wondering if you knew anything about it. Well, like I said, during COVID, they're still one of the main resources for fish food. So they are still going out more or less every day, depending on sea conditions, collecting fish. But because they are bottom trawling, it disrupts the whole ecosystem. You know, the bottom trawlers, they wipe out all of the corals and fans and everything that is on with all the crustaceans and cephalopods and other small invertebrates. And then obviously the nets are so large, they're also catching larger species of non-targeted fish, which is then classed as bycatch. So unfortunately, there are still some errors in the way that they're, you know, trying to catch a specific species of a certain size, but then it doesn't also allow other species to get out of the nets.
Yes.
Which is one of the especially as well, you know, you get quite a lot of stories of the fishermen who really don't like the seals, and they really don't like, you know, the whales and stuff and dolphins that take advantage of you know, the fishermen, but also cause a disruption.
Yeah, that's a tricky relationship, because you can see it. Well, there was a thing I was reading about in Scotland, of all places, where the salmon farmers were being griefed by the seals, the harbour seals. I think the grey seals that live there. I can imagine a similar kind of thing happening with the dolphins, the seals, and the whales when they're bottom trawling. Just for the audience who may not be in the know, what is bottom trawling?
So it's basically just a large net that's just dragged out, you know, a large amount of space over a large area, and unfortunately it's at the bottom, so it literally just drags along the sea floor, collecting anything in its way. Obviously there are certain restrictions on net size, depending on certain species and stuff, but more or less that is one of the main causes of bycatch. And bycatch, where obviously it's collecting species that aren't meant to be collected, so, you know, the larger species of sharks, the small species like rays, etc. But unfortunately, because they're stuck in these nets and they don't always get rescued in time.
And what is you may have covered this a bit further back, sorry. What's the effect of this? What is the problem with me dragging a massive net on the bottom of the sea?
You know, a lot of indication of how healthy a reef is to do with the amount of fish that are there and the amount of species and the different biodiversity, etc., that have come along there and created an ecosystem. So if they're going along with all these trawlers destroying all of the seafloor where all these fish species live, because, you know, we've got everything here. We've got corals, we've got anemones, we've got rocky shores, etc. So we've got an array of habitats for these different animals. And if they're coming in a large rate over a number of times a week or a month or a year, you know, what damage is that actually doing to the ecosystem? What damage is it doing to the reef? And are fish species moving away from it? So it can be quite damaging effects in the long run.
And this isn't something that just applies to Mossel Bay. This applies to, well, pretty much everywhere on the planet today.
Yeah, I mean, you know, bottom trawling is used everywhere. They also use all of the long lines, you know, that are just line after line attached to a piece of large hook and a piece of bait, which, you know, is catching anything from turtles to rays to sharks, dolphins, you name it. They're all getting stuck in it. And one of my main things that's close to my heart is obviously quite a lot of the seabirds as well that are suffering for it. They're getting entangled on all this gear, and especially the albatross, you know, they're one of my favorite sea predators, and they get such bad rep from fishermen, getting entangled in line and getting hooks and everything stuck in their mouths. So yeah, it's a conservation effort from that side of things.
Yes, that is another big problem. What is happening, if there is anything happening in Mossel Bay or anywhere else on the planet which has been done to counteract this?
Yeah, so no, they are getting to the point now where they are upgrading the technology. So they are creating certain size netting that is used for trawling, certain exclusion devices. So I think quite a lot of places in Europe use exclusive devices that actually allow animals to get out of the net that are trapped if they're over a certain amount of size, especially with sea tail stuff. So it's how much do you actually know? So how much is available for you to hear and see and read compared to what actually happened? It's a difficult topic.
Yes, it's a massively difficult topic. It really is, and it's one of the ones I find that most hard to talk about with anything, because like you said, how do you even know what anything means? Because my girlfriend wanted to buy some fish from the supermarket the other day, and we were looking at it, and it had this thing called dolphin safe on it, and we were like, what does that even mean? Like, what does that mean? Like, I don't know what that means.
So what it actually means is that where they've caught it isn't in relation to where the dolphins are. It doesn't actually have that much effect on it. But it doesn't mean it's sustainably caught. It doesn't mean that it was caught in a way that's suitable, and all these other different things. What you really want to do, especially in the UK, and I think you do get it at places abroad, is you get the MS2 stamp.
Okay.
And that's basically the Marine Council stewardship, and they basically authenticate what's fish is caught sustainably and what's not. So normally, if you see a blue tick, what you've caught is fine, or what you're eating. Sorry. But like I say, there are some things that say dolphin friendly. There's some things that say, it was caught in a sustainable matter, and whatever you want to put on there.
I can't tell the difference these days between a marketing campaign and an actual thing that's trying to help out. Do you know what I mean? It's so tricky. It's such a minefield, and it just makes it's one of those things I never know how to figure out, but it's something we have to figure out because of that little baby seal that I saw with the net around it. Yeah, and like you say with the albatross.
Yeah, we have to find a way to coexist, which I think has been one of the main issues for humans and everything for hundreds and hundreds of years. We're really, really exploiting now. We're really, really taking over all the forests, and global is a real thing. It's happening. We're seeing it with the water temperature changes. So it needs to be talked about. Take it seriously enough.
Yeah, it needs to be taken seriously. What have you seen with your own eyes? Like you were talking about the gannet that got caught in entanglement. What other incidences of these? What kind of incidences have you seen, like with your own eyes?
So obviously working for GoDive and White Shark Africa, we're in really good relations with SAPRIC, who are a seabird and penguin rehabilitation centre here. So they're a really amazing charity. They're going out with volunteers looking after sick and injured seabirds, which can include anything from penguins to gannets, gulls, and your corals. And we recently had a thing a couple of months ago where all the gulls that we're finding were just dripped in oil, which then makes them unable or fly, basically, because they're so oiled up in their feathers. So seeing that, but then obviously seeing the work that SAPRIC does is obviously very amazing as well, because they're taking these birds in, they're bathing them in really particular soaps and water to get oil out of their feathers to make them, able to be released again. So there are certain things obviously that we are seeing, and like I say, the entanglement of certain species as well. And recently I was in the harbour the other day, and I saw a gull sitting there with a line sticking out of his mouth with a hook.
Oh, geez.
So so I'd eaten something off a piece of bait off the fishing line and got it stuck somewhere, and now it's got to live out of its mouth the whole time.
God, that's crazy. That's really crazy. I've seen a few of the gull, like maybe one or two who had the oil hit, but that was always after some kind of major incident, which we all kind of heard about.
Yeah.
My God, is that common with the seagulls?
I think it's just any sort of marine bird that is going in and out of the water. If they do get a big tanker or some sort of large boat come through here and it does have an oil leak or a spill or something into the ocean, these animals live there, so obviously it's going to affect them. And especially with birds as well, if they're not able to dry their feathers or use their flight feathers, they can't fly, they can't hunt, they can't go anywhere. So it's pretty much a death, to be honest.
It's a death sentence, that, it's a big death sentence. What can anglers, because I've mentioned throughout the whole of this, I met a bunch of anglers, loads of them are nice guys who kind of care about this stuff. What can anglers, if any of them are listening, what could they do to help with the fishing lines, with, if they use nets at all? I'm not too sure. What can people like that do to help lessen their impact?
Well, they need to make sure, for a start, that when the area that they're fishing in, is left the way it was when they first turned up there. So if there was no litter, if there's no fishing line anywhere, because the majority of these guys, they're cutting up all the line, they're attaching all the sinkers and the hooks and the bait, etc. So it does create quite a lot of mess. When we go on our beach cleans, we're picking up cable ties, we're picking up sinkers, we're picking up hooks, we're picking up floating devices, like anything that the people use around here for recreational fishing. So as long as they're just being very conservative about what they're doing around them, they're not leaving their rubbish behind, they're not throwing their cigarette butts down on the floor, and what they're targeting or what they're trying to catch as well. Preferably, obviously, catch what we prefer, because the animal's still alive. It's still going to be flourishing and mating and reproducing in the future. But if not, then we just make sure that what you are catching, you are making full use of. You are eating it. You are sharing it with the community and making full use out of it, rather than just wasting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, we had a friend of mine, or I think no, it's actually my sister, was telling me, because she used to go fishing with her boyfriend, and this is back in Wales, and she would find all of these. I want to think they're kind of like a cat shark, I think. She would find them on the rocks with the hooks in their mouths, and because people would have caught them and left them there. So what they would have done, they would have like taken the hooks out and put it back in the water. But there was like a bunch of these little, these kind of small sharks with the hooks in the water and the hooks in their mouths. Sorry, what was that?
Spiny dogfish?
Maybe, yeah. Maybe a spiny dogfish, yeah. And there was a big thing about the local fishermen not liking them for some reason. I'm not too sure. But yeah. So just the main habits is just like keeping a clean area.
And I think as well, for the larger trophy hunters who are targeting the larger species, just to be a little bit more compassionate about the animal. Most of these animals fight this animal, especially the larger species of sharks and rays, for hours to bring this animal onto the shore. So, just kind of appreciate the fact that you've caught this animal. It's a magnificent animal. It doesn't want to die. Like, none of us want to die, obviously, but just you're getting it out of the water, you're releasing the hook, as you can. You're taking a photo as possible, and the animal's going back into the water.
Yeah.
So as long as it's as effectively and quickly as that, then I can't say there being any, danger to the animal more than what it would have done before.
Yeah, it's about enjoying the environment. All of us, how do you say it? All of us playing together nicely. I think that's what someone put it. I had a conversation with somebody a while back about this, and it's basically that. It's how can we all enjoy this, I've lost the words. How can we all enjoy this ecosystem together, basically? That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, and use it to its full effect of, I'm very much a sit back and appreciate everything that's in front of me. So, when I get on to go on the shark boat, I'm more than happy just to sit on the boat and just watch the species. When I'm diving, if I see an animal swim past me, it just makes me in awe of how lucky I am to be around such amazing wildlife.
Yeah. No,
awesome. Really awesome. So I just want to bring the light back into the conversation, because whenever it comes into environmental talks, it just gets a bit doom and gloom, but I try and keep things a bit more upbeat when I talk to people. What have you learned about these animals over a year of being there?
Sure. I learn something new every day, and I think that's one of the best things about being out here, is that there's always something different to learn, and you speak to different people who have their own theories and who have their own facts that they've learned about the animals. There's certain days that the sharks prefer to hunt on, and that's all just researched on how many times they hunt at night compared to during the day. And the fact that there's some white sharks that are able to change color in terms of their environment. Like, it's just speaking to all these different people who give you all these different facts all the time. It's amazing. It really is.
White sharks changing color? I've not heard this one.
Yeah, so it's not as dramatic as a chameleon, I would assume. But they do go through this process of going from the counter sort of shading of the greys to darks to lights, depending on their environment and other factors that sort of surround them.
So it's more of like a change, like they're changing color, but it's not as dramatic as I'm thinking.
No. It's more from a kind of light grey to a darkish grey, and then the pigment starts to come through. But
that must help them a lot with the camouflage.
Yeah. But one of my favorite facts, especially about the white sharks, is the fact that their fins, their dorsal fins, are like fingerprints. Every individual shark is different, and just like us humans, not one of us are the same. And that's exactly the same for the sharks. They have their own personalities, their behaviors are different on the boat, the way that they show you these things as well. It makes you realize how intelligent and beautiful these animals are.
Yeah.
No, yeah, one of my favourite things of all was getting the opportunity to get really, really close to that particular animal. I think that was just such a privilege, I think.
Yeah.
To get so close to an animal like that.
100%.
When you're filming them, because this is a long time ago now, but I've been involved in a few of those film shoots, and from what I remember, sometimes it got a little close. Have things gotten better since I was doing them, or have things progressively gotten worse?
It's the things that people do to film wildlife, and I think that's one of the things that any viewer at home doesn't actually realise of how much effort goes into wildlife, because they're not something that you can just call over and take a photo of and they swim off again, or they're not going to be in the perfect light, or the weather's not going to be perfect, or the sea conditions are going to be terrible. So just appreciating sort of like how difficult it is to film these animals. We've had it recently cage where we've had to remove bars from the cage and have the camera equipment outside of the cage because of the size specification of the camera. So being in this cage, with this whopping hole in the front of it and seeing these up so close to you, thinking, if they really wanted to, they probably could.
Yeah, that's a scary thing. That's pretty cool though. That's really cool. Yeah. No, it's one thing that's never appreciated is how much effort it takes to film a thing. Especially something like the white shark, because you can be waiting there for hours and hours and hours.
Yeah, and that's one of the main things and questions we get on the boat from all our clients. They're like, how long does it take for the sharks to come? When are the sharks going to be here? How long are we going to be in the cage for? And it's just explaining to these people, that we don't have any control over anything that happens with animals. They come close to the boat, and that's how we get them in, and then we do it based on views, how long they go past the boat, and timing that interaction perfectly with how the sharks are acting.
That's so tricky. That was the big thing, wasn't it? Was trying to convey, they'll be here any day now, don't worry about it. Just stay in the water. That's one thing we used to say a lot. We had because the water was quite cold whenever I was there, so you had all these people in their wetsuits shivering in the cage. I'll be here any day, don't worry about it. Just keep an eye on your watch underwater.
It'll be worth it.
No, it was great fun. What can people do of any who are listening to this right now? What can folks do to help? What can I say? Because we're talking about how great these things are, but we're also talking about how much threat there is to their existence. And we want to give people a good message to say, hey, look, how can I as an individual help the seas, help the sharks, help the forests, help whatever? How can people at home listening to this do their very best in their day-to-day to help the oceans, forests and sharks?
Do you know what, Ian? It's like the smaller things. So, like I know there's a lot of talk at the moment about people's dietary requirements. Like personally, I've stopped eating meat long ago, as well as fish. That's one of my efforts that I've done. And like I said to you earlier about the MSC label for the fish that you're buying, to making sure that it's sustainably fished and that it's going to be lasting longer in this ocean, that we can actually. So just looking out for that label if you are still wanting to eat fish, making sure that it is sustainably caught and that this animal's still going to be there in the future. And other little things as well, like just as little as the recycling, getting all your bottles right. And we've got a little project going on where I know a few people who are doing eco bricks. So all of the plastic that they can't recycle, they're shoving into these plastic bottles, creating eco bricks for local communities to build houses out of. So there are loads of little things. Support your what you're interested in as well. So if you do see that they are having a what's the word for it, a petition of they want to make shark species listed as threatened and unable, protected, for instance. So what I think what South Africa is trying to do at the moment is make the Mako protected. So, just signing that petition online, filling out your email address and stuff, it does make a huge difference. It does show people that, there are loads of people who are concerned about the planet and they want to make a difference. And go out and volunteer as much as you can as well. There'll be so many things locally that you can do in your own area. Even when you take a trip to the beach, to the river, to the park, if you see a plastic ball, if you see something on the floor, pick it up and put it in the trash. Just those little things that you can consciously do.
Yeah.
No, yeah, I think it's all about that. It's all about, every little helps in a sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, every little bit of thing you can do, staying active.
Yeah.
That's great. Listen, I'm out of time.
Awesome.
Awesome to speak to you, and hopefully I'll be over in Mossel Bay soon. Hopefully.
Yes, amazing. We look forward to having you back here, and anyone else that wants to come out here, anything else that wants to know any questions or answers or anything, they can point it in this direction or reach out to us. We're more than happy.
No, awesome. This was a lot of fun. I love hearing Mossel Bay stories because, like I said, it's just got such a nice little place
Vibe.
in my heart. Yes, the vibe. Yes, it's got a nice vibe and a great place in my heart. But yeah, love hearing Mossel Bay stories and just love talking about it. All right, thanks so much. Yeah.
No problem. Thank you very much. See you later.
Cheers. See you later.